Welcome to Sex, Love and Science with Lauren Muratore, clinical psychosexual therapist and relationship expert. This podcast explores sexuality, relationships, and the many facets in between, aiming to normalize sexual conversations, issues that we all face. Let's take the taboo out of sexuality and open up the conversations for a better sexual existence. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. All right, welcome back. Now, today's episode's a little bit different, and I thought it'd be really cool to introduce a couple. Now, this couple is Axel and Evie, and they do adult content. Now, let's see, before we get started, why am I doing this episode? Is it to propagate porn and adult content? Well, not necessarily. It's to look at it through a different lens and through a lens that people actually don't really think about. I'm not sure many of us are thinking about couples out there are doing this as a job, as for profit or for fun. And it's the consumption of porn and adult content that is usually the issue. So before we go into any debates about if porn is good or bad, we're just sticking to couples content and how fascinating it is. So with further ado, thanks for joining me, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. It's excited to be here.
Yeah, this is really cool to have a chat to you about what you do, because I just people wouldn't imagine that people can do this together and maintain a what So
funny that, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
We think it's the best way.
That's what I'm keen to hear about. So tell me, you guys are making content and you're putting it out there for the world to see.
Absolutely.
We are.
And how does it? So shall I ask you what got you started into it as a couple?
Well, you can start this one.
So I think initially I had been creating content.
Yep.
That's something I had been doing, and nothing, not full-time or anything like that, but just something that I enjoyed doing and enjoyed sharing those parts of myself, a bit of a reclamation of sexuality in a way, as well as I just find it very liberating, enjoyable, and why not profit on my sexuality when,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I met Axel and, he thought it was great. He thought it was excellent. And then we kind of started talking about, what would it be like to create content together? And I think we had quite a few conversations about how that might look, because, porn can look many different ways.
Absolutely.
But what we wanted to bring to it was real authenticity, connection, sensuality, the kind of core of what we are together, because that kind of porn isn't the kind of porn that you find easily accessible or around. It is out there, but it's just not as common. So we thought we'd bring those parts of ourselves and kind of share them with the world in a way that was, real, authentic, connective, sensual, but also a bit hedonistic and fun as well. Just all the parts of our sexuality kind of coming together. And I'll hand it over to you to kind of talk about your experience with how we came into it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, when we met, as you said, you were already doing some things which I was fascinated by and curious about. I've never done any content creation before at this stage. The first couple of things we did were more spontaneous. Do you want to join me and make a video for my channel? And I was like, okay, I can do that.
That's pretty hot, but also brave to go, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll see how I go.
Very
could be really intimidating, could be scary, but it was good, and I enjoyed that. So I don't think it took long at all before we said, hang on, why don't we create a page together, and promote ourselves as a couple rather than you just being, or me just playing a bit part on your channel.
Yeah, running solo. It's like, let's create our own Evie plus Axel.
Evie plus Axel, not just the cameo stints.
Yep, that's right.
And I like hearing too, Evie, from you. It's asking for what you'd like too. Is, hey, would you like to do this? I'm doing this. Would you like to join me?
Yeah. And for him to be so open and curious and excited about it, that is, it's a massive turn on. Yeah. And also really exciting to have that be able to play out in my relationship. I just didn't think, my relationships to date have not been open and curious in these ways. To have someone, or to have Axel come in so open and curious and excited about it, it was like fuel. It's like, oh, this is even more exciting exciting now. This is putting, means I feel like I can put more of my energy into it and feel excited because I've got, co-pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me as well, I mean, it is a fun thing to do, just as a couples thing. But for me personally, it's also a major growth thing. My whole life, I've sort of felt very restrained when it came to putting myself out there in general. I mean, this is obviously a bit of a taboo thing if you're talking mainstream society, but even when it comes to other things as well. So I've seen this as a growth path for me to kind of challenge myself to really own who I am, what I have to offer, and obviously taking that risk of putting yourself up for judgment and potential ridicule and everything that comes with this. For me, that I've been very resistant to that. And so it's a great opportunity for me to step into that. And I've found that also, to be liberating and empowering for me as well.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying because that's what got me into it initially in my own way. I mean, our journeys are very different in many ways, but yeah, it's been beautiful to see the growth that's kind of occurred along the journey with you. It's been like just delicious.
Oh gosh,
I'm blushing a little.
I know. Oh, that's so cool. Now, I liked how you say, like, it's kind of like what you do is a little bit niche, right? It's not mainstream. You have, like, this really kind of sensual element, a bit erotic, a bit of playful, but, and hedonistic. But I'm really kind of curious, are you just in the mood and then kind of be like, hey, let's turn the cameras on? Or, like, I'm kind of thinking practical here. I know this is probably boring, but.
The practicalities. I think that we go into it. Some of it might be pre-planned in a way. We can't plan out the whole experience, but we have an idea of what we might want to play with that day. Sometimes it is spontaneous and we'll just go into it out of spontaneity and be like, oh, we'll set up a camera. But otherwise we'll have it set up. So we've got everything captured the way we want it, but we just kind of flow, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, because we have busy lives outside of this, as well. It isn't always an opportunity to just start rolling whenever you sort of feel like it. But when we have space to ourselves, when we're away, we tend to bring our equipment. So if we have an opportunity to set something up, we can do that. Yeah. But if we need to, we can also plan ahead. Like, okay, this weekend we're going to do some shooting and bounce some ideas and stuff as well. But some of it's just day-to-day ideas to come up.
Yeah, day-to-day ideas. But I also find that when we're out planning, we plan for these shoots, but often in between shooting, we'll find ourselves cameras off, intimate with each other. So it's not like we're only having sex on camera that day. I think one weekend we went away and I think we had sex more times off camera in 48 hours than we did on camera. And the point was to go and get some content. But I think it ended up being like 12 times. And I think 7 or 8 of those times off camera, the rest on camera that particular weekend. So it's not limiting us in any way, that's for sure, in our personal lives. So yeah, that was a record.
It was.
Yeah, that's a big getaway.
Yeah.
I'm
we needed
envious.
it. We've been really busy.
That was my birthday weekend.
It was your birthday weekend.
That is a very happy birthday.
Yeah, very.
A lot of people get a video of blowing up the candles on the cake. We got a video of different.
I think we've got
blowing.
4 videos. You're certainly right.
It's on the OnlyFans.
It is.
If anyone wants
to see it.
It's a good one.
Okay. Noted. It'll be in the show notes. Axel's birthday. Wow.
I should have named it that. That's good.
Yes, you're talking about sometimes spontaneous, you'll put the cameras on it, and sometimes it's planned. I like that you're saying that because that's what couples do, right? Like non-content creators, sometimes we have to schedule it, sometimes we don't. And the fact that you are doing this for a bit of work, it's not de-eroticizing, which is phenomenal to hear. Yeah,
it's really important that it doesn't. If it impacted us in our personal lives, it would be something that we would not do. Yeah. I think there's been times where we've had cameras rolling and one of us has said, you know what, let's stop the cameras because we need to reconnect, become more present with each other again. That's the most important thing for us. Yeah. To be able to do it, we're not going to do it and act out anything. It's got to be authentic in how we're connecting. Yeah.
Sometimes some people obviously have a bit more of an exhibitionistic streak than others. And I think for somebody who does, it can be a really simple and natural way to almost enhance your existing sex life as well. Because you can essentially get off on the fact that this is going to be watched by someone, even though I'm purely just present and enjoying our experience here, it can enhance it further knowing that, someone else will share it at some point.
Yeah.
That's okay. So maybe you guys can help with people listening, because I'm curious what tips maybe that you could provide that the ability to stay present and connected to one another without having, I guess, the pressure of a camera rolling. Right. We all have some sort of pressures. And I find in the clinical work, it's, the inner monologues are really creating a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking an actual object, a phone, a camera, something, which is a little bit of pressure, right? And people go into performative mode, and that's a whole nother topic. But how do you stay present with one another?
I think I find that if I feel like there's any part of me that starts focusing in on the camera, that's when I'll stop it and say, we need to stop. I need to be with you, and we'll sit together. We'll touch each other. Essentially, we'll look into each other's eyes. We'll speak to each other. We'll just kind of be really present in our communication, in the way that we're touching, we're looking. It's bringing all the senses back to each other. Even breathing together is really good. It happens a lot less now, though. I think it's become quite normalized to have the camera rolling, at least for me. So it's really just connecting with all the senses back in, and communicating what's going on as well, and maybe asking for reassurance if there's something that's come up or something like that, for me at least. How do you find it?
Yeah, I think everything that you said, but also underscore that it's a question of habit and experience as well. Like the first couple of times, we just put a camera there for fun, and it was just a fun thing. It just turned into content that you ended up using, and so that wasn't a distraction. That was just a hot thing.
Yeah, bit of novelty there.
Yeah, but the first couple of times we set up the camera with the intention of, okay, we are going to produce some content. I found that quite intimidating, quite distracting, and it took a bit of work to actually get away from the fact that there's a camera there. But as time's gone by, it becomes less and less of a thing. It's just like first time you have a cat sitting in the room, it probably freaks you out completely. Eventually, like, it's just a cat.
Yeah.
Bit of exposure therapy for you.
Exactly, exposure therapy. That's it. Enough practice.
And hey, look, fair point of saying the first time it was intimidating and distracting. I like how you're just calling that out, because a lot of people do struggle to, like, whether it's a camera or anything, or the cats. I get that a lot. Like, everybody tells me about their animals, and they're sitting in the room with them, like, especially dogs who are pawing at doors, and people can't have sex because the dogs are in the same room. Like, why would you not have sex because an animal is in the room? Like, that's preventing a lot of good stuff right there. So the camera's just another thing that's just something to kind of get over.
Yeah, but and it's not necessarily quick and easy. It's probably depends on the individual, but for me, all of these things have been very challenging. I'm quite used to facing challenges in my sexuality, and have for a long time. It's almost just become habit to go, okay, I'm intimidated by this. What is it about that? Why do I want and sort of step up and face that new intimidation thing?
Yeah.
I think that sort of works in all parts of life, where if we're sort of drawn to explore what it is that we feel resistant about something or intimidated by, and if we can get over that fear or intimidation, then obviously we can go further in whatever our pursuits are. So this is just another example of that. And it might take a very special person to step into this field and feel completely comfortable. Maybe some people are like that. I'm certainly not. It's been a long journey to get to the point where I felt comfortable doing something like this. And there are other areas in which I'm still journeying in that way.
Yeah, and it's constant communication. Like, when these things come up, we look what's underneath it and kind of address what is underneath it, because it's not going to be as simple as, oh, I'm a bit worried people are going to see me naked on the internet. It's like, what does it mean to show up and perform in this way, to be seen in full vulnerability, to be seen in sensuality and eroticism and all of these things, especially, given your journey with sexuality and my own, to be seen so authentically and vulnerably in this space by literally anybody who wants to pay to see it. It's challenging, but it's not just as simple as, oh, I'm being seen. That's scary. It's like, what's underneath? It's usually layers and layers, and it usually goes back to, early beginnings, childhood trauma, all those things that we may have experienced in terms of our parental relationships, our general relationships, our romantic relationships, etc., and our experiences. So it's always what's underlying, and it's getting to the root of it and then kind of unraveling it from there, which, you do beautifully. And the communication we have around that's been great. So we can can really get to the core of it, because the quicker you can get to the core of it, the quicker you can do the quicker. I mean, it's no rush, but you can get to the point of it and get to the core of it and deal with it a lot more efficiently and with a lot more awareness. Yeah.
Wow. You kind of just like gave a really good recap of what I say about therapy. Very succinctly and quick. Minus the quickly part, but you know.
Disclaimer, we are not actually clients of yours. In that
actually, good point. Yes. Good point. Yes, no, thank you. Not a case study live in front of me.
No, not yet.
It's a matter of taking a keen interest in psychology and just the workings of my own mind for so long. And I think you're much the same, that it's like a special interest. So it's like going through all the modalities of therapy, gathering them all up and what works, what doesn't, what can I put in my toolkit, and then bringing it into my relationships, into my life. And I think you're the same. And it goes into this as well. It works great with this. So we can
bring it into content creation.
Exactly. Why not? Yeah, bring it into porn, get to the core of those underlying insecurities and worries, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
It seems like you guys have a really good balance between the two of you, and are so very similar in a lot of ways as well, that I guess the compassion and space that you can hold for one another is like pretty evident. I could just see it right now. So I'd imagine anybody watching your intimate videos could really probably see that, which is it's really nice to know that there's content out there that's not degrading to women, showing performances, that there can be something of purpose or meaning out there. That sex doesn't have to, like, porn does not equal dirty all the time.
No, not at all. What are your thoughts on this? We've had these conversations.
I'd say that rather than think about what our niche would be and how that fits into the broader context of adult content, I think we've just tried to capture as much of our own selves as we could.
Most definitely.
But what you describe happens to be how we interact and how we perceive ourselves, and how, we are a more sensual rather than explicit sexual energy in what we do. And a lot of our content will reflect that as well. I think that is something that is good. There's so much, like, if someone's just looking for visual content that's degrading towards women, especially, like, you don't have to go very far. And
no, you don't, unfortunately.
No, apparently people want that. I never did myself. And I guess in some ways, the content that we produce is content like what I would have hoped to find when I was myself a consumer of content. So in that sense, I guess there is a niche and a market for it.
I think, being able to, I think we are very similar. I think we was very similar and very different in
You're
many
female.
ways. And I think, the ability to really, hold space for each other through vulnerable moments or experiencing, and really being on the same page about how we want to show up to the general public. I mean, the way we show up in our personal lives is the way we want to show up in our content. So we're both very aligned with that. And it doesn't mean we can't be playful with it sometimes. Sometimes it'll be a bit less sensual and it'll be more playful. And then I think for the most part, though, we always end up back in the sensual realm, because that's just where we naturally flow. But
it's a big edge, actually, to sort of step out of what is normalized within your routines and your relationship. But it can also be fun and a growth journey in its own right.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
I'm just watching the magic in front of me. Going, wow, this is possible. This is good to know.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think for a minute. Say a year ago, would not have for a moment thought this was possible. I kind of, it's another story for another day. But the synchronicities of running into Axel were just otherworldly. I thought a relationship like this didn't exist, and it was when I lent out of kind of hoping for that, and you showed up. And then here we are. So it does exist. It does, and it can.
Talking about just your journeys, and not thinking that you'd be able to kind of get to this stage, and here you are facing some of your fears head on, and both of you being vulnerable. Did you ever think that you'd be in a relationship of this nature that is doing what you're doing, having the same mentality, the same vibe. Were you looking, well, you said you weren't looking really for an Axel, but, you know, synchronicities, but is this what you were hoping for, do you think?
I think if I had some kind of dream relationship, I would have hoped that they would be curious, at least. If not wanting to be involved, okay. But I think in having you being excited to come on the journey and express interest in it and be genuinely curious in everything that I am, and this being part of it, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I couldn't imagine a relationship in which there wasn't crossover in these ways now, because here we are, and it's magical. Like, it's brilliant what we can create, and how much closer that brings us together in terms, I mean, we're really close outside of this, but this is just another layer, like this multi-layered, and this is one of the beautiful layers that really brings a lot to both of us, I think. Yeah,
for me, I guess in my mind, a relationship, I imagined it being either or. You know, if something was to be, you know, deeply emotionally connected, where you're, you know, essentially building your life as partners and sharing all other facets of your life as well, then that would be at the exclusion of a relationship where you're doing like hot, adventurous things, you know, with erotic frictions, and in this case, you know, like pornographic content on the internet. You know, like, it seems in my mind until we met that it would be difficult to reconcile those two things in one connection. I hadn't excluded the possibility of anything, but I guess in my expectation would be that if I meet and connect with someone who I would be doing these sorts of things with, that it would be a more superficial connection outside of that.
You didn't mention, you know, I'm not sure how open I can be. This will be a matter of just seeing how I can open, and if I can open under these kind of, you know, under these circumstances, because this is new, and I'm not sure how deep I can go into relationship, you know, holding this part. And it didn't take long. And we can go pretty deep. Yeah, pretty quickly.
And even though it's vulnerable, like you mentioned before, like be able to be holding space for each other in moments of vulnerability and showing up for each other and really being attuned to where the other person is at a given point. Like, not every single day that we can shoot content, for example, because there will be distraction elsewhere in life that will put us in a frame of mind where that's not going to work. So we have to obviously allow for those variations in our moods and our other responsibilities and so forth, and work around that. And we both luckily have similar lifestyles outside of this that we can actually understand and I suppose work together to find our path to wherever we need to go.
Agreed. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And some just kind of magic kind of key statements in there that I kind of then bring into clinical work is just having the understanding where your capacity's at and realizing like your life, your moods, you know, how you're feeling. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to affect your, I guess, propensity to want to be doing these things or how you're even going to show up and how that's all normal and that's going to be okay.
It's welcomed and it's okay if Axel's having a hard week and it's just like, you know what, I know that we planned for this, but I'm just at capacity. It's okay. Like it's okay. It's time to reconnect in other ways that, you know, bring us back to that kind of center point, so then we can go back into the world and do what we do best, which is content creation is part of that. But but that's crucial, and that's what so many people don't do. I have to say, like I because I see it every day, and it's the friction and the conflict, because that they're not getting that, oh, well, we did plan for this and you said you were going to, and you disappointed me yet again. And you guys are just showing the complete opposite. You're like, I get it. Let's come back to center. Which I think is really beautifully put. Yeah, coming back to center is definitely, I think, how I would put it. And it's essential. Otherwise, you end up, you're supposed to be on the same team here. You know, we're not on opposing teams. We're never on opposing teams, even when things are hard or, you know, things might get frustrating or difficult or we're having a hard time. It's always remembering that we're on the same team, regardless of what comes up. So, and coming back to center together, not separately. Yeah. You're like a textbook couple that I like. If I write my book, can I have the liberty of having your faces on a page? That's so flattering. Just do this. Everything that we're going to speak about, just see these people, just do that.
it wasn't something we were born capable of doing either.
Oh gosh,
it's fair to say.
No, it's taken a hell of a lot of growth work on our separate journeys. It's just we've come together at a point where we've both done a hell of a lot of work, and we continue to together in relationship and, you know, individually, but with the support of each other. So it's definitely not been like a magical combination of two human beings who just happen to be, you know, it's taken a hell of a lot of work on both of our behalves with very differing experiences in lives that, you know, have crossed over in ways, but ultimately we've just kind of hit each other at the same wavelength and gone, whoa, I get you. I understand you completely. And I feel completely understood for the first time in my life by a partner, completely understood in who I am and how I show up, which is just, I thought that was impossible, honestly. I just thought I was a little bit too alien for anybody to fully understand who I am and how I am and the reasons I am. But you've done that seamlessly. So, again, another thing.
I'm trying not to tear up. Yeah.
Another reason that makes it so easy to show up in the world so authentically in relationship in this way. We go out and we cry in cafes together. It's great. It's like it's probably a weekly ritual for us. It's like at this moment we'll be looking at each other over coffee and we just be so overwhelmed with gratitude that we just both start crying, and we've just given up trying to hide it. We don't even really try and hide it. It's just more of a like, don't want to make people around you uncomfortable, but I'm like, you know what? This is just a real, authentic moment. If they knew what
we do when we get home, they'd be
I think crying's the least of their problems. Yeah. I really value that you can show up in that way. Yeah, really value it. Yeah,
that's quite beautiful. You did mention one thing about just being attuned to one another, which I think is pretty critical, because that's what I do teach a lot of couples and individuals, and it's kind of an art form. People don't really learn how to do that, and I'm kind of getting the sense that that's so helpful to you both to, I guess, to even have a better sexual experience or to not have that experience. Do you want to speak on like how you're able to kind of do that? Like, you know, how are you attuned into each other so well?
Honestly, I think it's just an intuitive thing. I don't think that there's any techniques or skills or anything that's applied, unfortunately.
But that intuition has been developed, and that has been developed through the work that you have done. You weren't just, you know, I believe.
I think to be attuned to someone else, you need to kind of clear out some of the stuff that goes on in yourself as well. Like
Thank you.
The sort of more quiet your own mind becomes in terms of your own thought patterns, and like as soon as you get onto yourself in terms of your own things, it sort of just opens up the ability to really connect in with someone else. Another thing that I find helps a lot is like I'm really curious about you as a human being. Like I'm fascinated by how you work and what makes you tick. You know, obviously, I desire you and I love you and these things that most people would say. But beyond that, I'm also really, really interested in learning about what's going on for you.
Curiosity, that is, I think, something that many people miss is being curious. And I think that's a huge part of our connection is we're constantly curious about each other on multiple levels. It's not just, you know, I'm curious about how you want me to show up for you sexually. It's like on every single level to be seen and to be have someone curious about you is really essential. But intuition, you were going to say something else.
Yeah, I was going to say we also love talking with each other.
Oh my gosh.
And listening to each other.
I got a sense of that.
Like we could sit for hours and just listen to each other share things. It's just and we do that on and off camera, I suppose. And when you do, like, you will very soon pick up on what's going on for your partner. Like if you pay attention to their energy and things, then, you know, you can read between the lines, and some things don't have to be spoken, but we share very openly. And I guess one of the things that I find as well is I feel very safe to share whatever is on my mind without having to kind of turn it into a version that's going to be okay for you. And that makes it really easy to kind of, it's easy for you to tune in with me because I'm very open about what's going on for me as
I
well.
can trust that. Yeah, I can trust that you're going to tell me your full truth, and I can be present for that. And on the other side, I can also offer my full truth and know that there won't be a reaction or a defensiveness. There'll be a curiosity. The curiosity is there. Yeah, which makes the world a difference, because then you can actually see what's going on rather than come from the place of hurt or the place of, insecurity or whatever it might be that is on top of the layer. If you're just kind of separating yourself from your brain and being aware and going, I see my brain is telling me the story about why she's upset. Actually listen to what's going on for her or for him. And then you're going to get the actual story, and then you're able to connect in and move forward together again as a team, not individually on opposite sides. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That isn't to say that we never get triggered by,
God, no.
by each other. but I guess we both have sort of the clarity to understand, like, this trigger isn't actually about you and what you said, but it's about something that I've brought here. And, what is it? What insecurity in me is it that's coming up as part of this?
Yeah, but the trigger doesn't become an argument, it becomes a conversation.
Yeah.
That's the point of difference. It becomes a conversation regardless of how high that trigger is.
Yeah. Good point. And then I guess, what I'm hearing is you both are really good listeners. Right, so kind of what you're kind of alluding to is putting your own agenda aside. Is you're like, why is this coming up for me? It's like, why am I not able to listen? But I'm going to hear you, so that I can be present with you and actually do that. And I think that's really, really important.
It can be very difficult in the moment if you're triggered to put aside your own story, even if you know that. That story is not the truth. It can be really hard because it's like a tantruming child just screaming to be heard. It's like the inner child is having a meltdown, and you're like, I hear you, but that's not the reality. But you're trying to soothe that child in the midst of kind of a trigger. It can be really challenging. So when you're met with safety and when you're met with someone who can be like, yeah, I see your child's tantruming, but I'm still here, I'm still present, and I'm not going to fall into my inner child's not going to jump in and fight your inner child. We're going to, I'm going to sit here with that, and it's okay. You can get down to a kind of more middle ground kind of place a lot quicker than, say, I have in the past with previous connections and relationships. So, yeah.
Wow. I think that's almost the most beautiful thing to kind of end it on. is how to be there for one another, how to, mitigate conflict, and how to take responsibility of ourselves to be there for another, and actually how that helps with authenticity and truth and sensuality is quite inspiring. So, my God, thank you guys for having me. We could sit here and
we could.
I know.
Yeah, I think ultimately it just comes down to, it's for us to be in the space and to be able to share ourselves in content. So, and have it bring something to our relationship rather than detract it. It comes down to what's underlying in the relationship and what, what else we're doing to really, set those foundations in order to be able to then go into the world safely together, vulnerably and authentically. I think it's probably the base of it all, I feel. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story and
Thank you.
Being so open and honest and authentic about it. Hopefully that'll give other people some hope and some tips on how to kind of bring the magic that you have in your relationship and how to maybe kind of bring that into theirs, which I really wanted to bring to the world. So thank you for letting me do that.
We would love that. Absolutely love that. If it brought even one person a little bit of insight, it would be, brilliant.
It will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys.